don't know why I found that. That was hilarious.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to It's Sybil. I am Sybil Wilkes playing a game of peekaboo. We're watching a game of peekaboo being played here. Welcome to It's Sybil, and the gang is all here. Hey, Myra. Woo, Jay. Woo, Lordy. By that much.
Just by that much. The hairs of our chinny chin chin. Cheers to you, Georgia.
Cheers.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yes. Hello, young Kwyn. How are you today?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling grateful and goofy. I'm here.
Good. And Stephen, I might have to excuse myself, Hill.
So there's a picture. I don't know if you've ever seen this picture of Albert Einstein, the smartest guys in the world, and everything. With the hair, and he's making a face like this, right? And so it was just funny to come on and see like one of the smartest, but like fiercely militant and anti-establishment people that I know come do this.
One of the serious, most dedicated communists I know.
Yeah, right. So that just I just thought of her like
and peekaboo.
Yeah.
See the
fun.
Now you know.
I'm fun of it. I may have to excuse myself at some point during the show. I apologize. Shantae told me not to share too much, so okay. I won't.
Okay, good. So stop right there. Just keep peace in the house. And just stop right there.
All right, fine. I was going to take this as a perfect time to promote colon health to our male.
Oh no!
I was going to take, but if you don't want me to, I won't.
No, we'll do it later. We'll do that PSA, and I do mean PSA, a little bit later. So how about that?
I mean, that's to go.
Let's take a look at the What You Need to Know newsletter. She said skirting that topic almost entirely, for at least for the minute. This is the What You Need to Know newsletter is our daily Monday through Friday newsletter in which we seek to super serve the African American community with our news stories and items. A lot of what we learned at Tom Joyner's feet at his side is what we do in this newsletter, and in terms of the focus of the stories, who we're writing for, and the types of stories and information we're giving. And we also have some young contributors who give us their perspective from a number of different areas, including social justice, mental health and wellness, and young Kwyn is our LGBTQ plus contributor. And let's talk about your story here, Kwyn. Today, a Texas man, in the newsletter today, you talk about a Texas man charged with threatening a Boston doctor for providing medical care to transgender patients and gender non-conforming children. What the what?
Yeah, so a Texas man left a threatening voicemail on the machine for a doctor where he called him a mother effer, that he was going to burn, and that there is a group of people on the way to handle the doctor in question. He also said, and his name is Matthew Jordan Linder. He's 38 from Comfort, Texas. He also said that
isn't that ironic? He's from Comfort, Texas, and he's raising hell like this. Okay, I'm sorry.
He also said that he has signed his own warrant because he participates in castrating our, and I'm assuming nation's children. He said that you have woken up enough people and upset enough of us, and you signed your own death ticket. The voicemail told the doctor to sleep well, not sleep in hell, sleep well. And this is not the first threat that this Boston University Children's Hospital has had. I reported on this, earlier in the month when they experienced their first one, but now this is one of several. And just recently, Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, along with 36 members of conference, has urged the Justice Department to step up efforts to not only protect providers of gender-affirming care, but also trans youth. Specifically like the patients so they can actually get the care that they deserve. So they have received more than 3 bomb threats in this year alone, specifically with this hospital. And so right now the charge may carry up to like 5 years, 3 years of supervised release, but a maximum fine of $250,000, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office.
How far do you think this will get, Kwyn?
In terms of how far he will go, or
and Ayanna Pressley with the Department of Justice and things like that. Do you have a sense of it?
I'm hoping that. Okay, I guess I feel optimistic tonight. I think it will go far. I think people will actually see that this is something that they should stand behind, that they should actually get involved in, and actually help keep children safe and alive and well, because that is all that doctors are trying to do. That's all that these hospitals are trying to do, is try to keep our youth safe, alive, and well. And so I'm hoping that politicians across both sides of the aisle will see that as a common interest, and see that bomb threats against a hospital, against doctors who are practicing this type of suicide prevention work, have the mission of actually saving our children and not unaliving them. So, yeah.
I don't see this as an isolated, you said this has happened before, and I don't see this being the last time that this happens. I hope that the squad, the congresswomen or men like Ayanna Pressley will push forward with this, with an investigation by the Department of Justice. They've got a lot on their plates, but this is definitely something that should be for this person to do this, and especially as it pertains to children. I just don't understand how people, they fight for us to not have control over our bodies. And once these children are here, then you want to tell us what you're going to do and threaten the people who are trying to take care of them, as well as perhaps threaten the children themselves. It hurts my heart, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm not trying to apply logic to this.
Oh, no, I hear you.
Right. And it's Texas. I think the craziest people come out of this state. I really do. I'm sorry. And yes, I live here. So.
Yes.
Florida's looking at you. Oh, really? Watch out.
Right. We're number one. Yeah, okay. You can have it, Florida, but there's some really
we're number
really
one.
People.
We're number one.
Right. Right. Okay. So keep an eye on that, Kwyn. The craziness continues. The story that I had in the newsletter is regarding the shooting at a power plant in North Carolina, which left over 40,000 people without power since Saturday night. The Duke Power, and this is in central North Carolina, Moore County. And since Saturday night, when one person or numerous people shot up this power grid, and people in the middle of a winter spell had no power, no electricity, no heat for their running water. They had no running water for the schools and businesses to be open. And it devastated tens of thousands of people and their lives, upended their lives. Nobody had power. They had, the governor brought in generators to help people, and food products, prepared food and things like that. But I contend that in the newsletter saying that this is not going to be the last time that we hear of this. And our governments, state government, our federal governments, have better get on the stick, because this is a perfect way to take out our country, is to eliminate the power grids. No computers, no nothing. Our cell towers were down there. They had run out of power, in which to just devastate our country. And sure enough, a federal memo has warned of previous attacks at power plants. And News Nation distributed this story, calling a targeted attack on power substations in North Carolina something that has happened before. And a recent federal law enforcement memo previously warned of similar possible attacks. Power companies in Oregon and Washington state have reported physical attacks on substations using hand tools, arson, firearms, and metal chains, possibly in response to an online call for attacks on critical infrastructure. And if that is not critical infrastructure, I don't know what is. In recent attacks, criminal actors bypassed security by cutting the fence links, lighting nearby fires, shooting equipment from a distance, or throwing objects over the fence and onto the equipment. And they said it's too early to know a motive for this, for the damage that has been caused and send a power outage in Moore County. But if this is any indication, this is not going to be the last. You know, in the state of Texas, we're on a separate power grid. Of course, everything is separate, but not necessarily equal. And so much of the state was without power during a winter surge. And if this again happened with Mother Nature, the targeted attacks on these substation power plants is dangerous, and it's frightening. And you just can't throw a memo and say, "Oh yeah, we knew about this." Well, what are you doing?
So 2001, as we know, 9/11, 2001. Shortly, it was within 2 years after that, there was a large blackout in
Pennsylvania.
New York.
Yep.
No, New York.
Well, no,
City.
we were affected in Pennsylvania.
But New York City, an eastern city, yeah, right? It was that's right. It was an eastern blackout. I remember I was in LA, and the very first thing I thought was like, they got smart and attacked the power grid, right? And there was conversation in as early as 2001, I'm sure before that, about how important the power grids are. And the more power grids that have gone online and less physical and more computer, they're just ripe for that. So it just feels like, to your point, more than a memo needs to address this, because without power, your computers go down, everything goes, your refrigeration goes down, your food spoils at a meteoric rate. Like your power
your
going
Mima
down.
and Papa's medicine that they have, none of that.
Power out is real because the generator system is not widespread. It's just not. So
that's why I find it.
Go ahead, Myra. I'm sorry.
That's why I find it so silly and barbaric, the people who keep going around talking about gun rights. And I got a right to carry a gun to protect myself if something. I'm like, that's 1800s, baby. They not coming with guns. They're not. They are so far beyond that. It's going to be the power grid. It's going to be the water. It's going to be the air. These are things we need to be concentrating on. But in the meantime, you stacking up bullets in the basement. Okay.
Right. And Myra, I don't remember when I said, Stephen, it was Pennsylvania. I don't know if you remember, but we were doing a sky show in Philadelphia. On that Thursday, we were coming into Philadelphia, and they were talking about the power outages and how we were going to be affected. The fear was that it was going to go all the way down the eastern seaboard. And luckily we did not, we were not affected, but the flights coming in, the trains coming in, everybody was affected by this in some way or another on the East Coast. And Steve, you were lucky. There was once a movie called Where Were You When the Lights Went Out? Well, it's going to happen, and we have to be prepared.
Yeah.
And we can't just fool around with a lot of craziness from one character who wants to, trash the Constitution. And when you have people who are in their heads devising ways to take out the power plants.
And their power is still out now. That's what you said?
Yeah. And so, Kwyn, they're saying that hopefully the power is back this
tonight,
evening.
right? Yeah.
According to the governor and people at Duke Power, they're hoping that that it has been repaired or replaced. And hopefully by this afternoon into the evening, the governor announced the state, Duke Energy, and Moore County are each offering monetary rewards of up to $75,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for the destruction in which more than 40,000 people were affected. And the state is also providing up to $25,000, while Duke Energy and Moore County are each offering rewards up to $25,000, and that brings it up to $75,000. But they were hoping this afternoon, and if people know, if you are in touch with people in that part of the country, and it's like 90 miles from Charlotte, and it's about 60 miles from the state capital of Raleigh. It really is pretty centralized, which makes you, and it's 2 substations they took out, makes you understand how centralized this is. And
some of the people are stating that some of the people power has been restored in that area. Yeah.
And that's, I don't know anybody in Moore County. I got people in Winston-Salem and that, but I don't know anybody in that area, but it just breaks your heart. There's nothing more frightening than to be without power and especially in the cold and the dark, and trying to drive with no traffic lights and things, all that kind of stuff is affected. You just don't know how your life is affected by what your day-to-day lifestyle is, and it's really quite something. I do want to, of course, remind folks that also. Oh, yes.
Oh, I thought he was putting his hand up because he had to speak.
He had to, scoot. I do want to remind people that every week, on a weekly basis, we do have an inclusion from the Black and Missing Foundation. And they are asking people who have any information about LaCambria Deonche Toomer. She's 23 years old. She's been missing since August 13th from Albany, Georgia. And a young Black woman, obviously, Black and missing, and asking to take a look at her picture in the What You Need to Know newsletter. If you have any information about her, please go to the Black and Missing Foundation. She was last seen, as I said, August 13th of this year. According to her family, her phone was last pinged in Dawson, Georgia, near some abandoned houses, and her Cash App card was used August 15th, just 2 days later after she went missing. So take a look at her picture, and if you have any information, please get in touch with the Black and Missing Foundation. And that's why we do this, because our people just don't get the coverage, and they don't get the TV time and all of that, or the newsletter time in whatever cases that people of a lighter hue do. Mm-hmm. It's just the reality of it. All right. Another thing that I want to talk about is Haiti. Haiti is under some horrific, Haitians are living under some horrific conditions right now. The political structure is upended after the assassination of their last president. People are taking over, gangs are taking over the streets of that country. And the president is allowing Haitians who have sought refuge in the United States to stay for a bit longer. The Homeland Security Department said Haitians who were in the United States on November 6th could apply for temporary protected status, and those that were granted it last year could stay an additional 18 months until August of 2024. That's nice, but it's not enough. And if we can go in, and if we can, and I wish Stephen Hill was here to punch back at me on this, but if we can go in and help Ukraine, we can certainly go to this nation, to our South, and help those people and upright their lives, or as much as they're willing to allow us to. So there you have it. That's my thought. That's my contribution to this. Let us now move on to what's really going on. And Kwyn, you have a guest today, and we're going to be talking about kind of related to what you were talking about transgender youth. But let's welcome in Jay and say hello to Jay. And you can make the introductions. Hi, Jay.
Hey, Sybil, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Okay, I'm going to make sure I read your bio first, too, Jay, because I appreciate you taking the time. Let me pull it up here. But we can also talk about anything outside of what I talked about in the newsletter, y'all, just like a heads up. Okay. Let me find it from Camille's email. Dang. Okay, I'm about to make a personal bio then. Okay, here it is. Jay Rice, who uses he, him pronouns, is a trans-masculine public figure, activist, and abolitionist fighting for the liberation of oppressed communities on a daily basis. Jay is the interim CEO at Brave Space Alliance. He is a cultural curator, international DJ, composer, and overall practitioner of freedom, joy, and justice. His background in political science and intercultural communications shapes his dedication to the progress of all Black, LGBTQIA+ folks and other marginalized groups through perpetuating on-the-ground societal shifts, advancements, cultural change, and growth. This dedication can be seen and holistically felt through over a decade of creating intentional spaces that center all Black, LGBTQIA+ women, femmes, transgender, nonconforming, and queer folks in Chicago and around the world. Jay continues to foster an equitable future and moves intentionally towards a collectively liberated society. So welcome, Jay. Thank you so much for taking the time. Oh, and he's a Sagittarius. So shout out to all the Sagittarius.
Happy birthday in advance.
Happy birthday, almost. Yes.
I
Yes.
appreciate that. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, I appreciate your availability. So I think we should start off with more about you and how did you get involved with BSA?
Yeah. So like you said, I'm an international DJ and activist here in Chicago. So I was kind of always in the same spaces as BSA and my collective, Small World Collective. We partnered in the past and just were always in the same areas. But in 2019, I DJ'd Brave Space Alliance's Big Unicorn Ball, which is our big fundraiser every year. And I kind of just stuck around ever since then. But being, a Black queer person in nightlife during the pandemic, some of our jobs were the first to get cut out. So that required me to pivot in order to support myself and my family. And I was able to pivot with Brave Space Alliance. And I came in at the height of the pandemic as a program coordinator. And within 3 months, I was the director of comms. And now we're here.
Yes, and I should share too that I met Jay originally because he was also interviewed as the CBS Pride History Month maker. So that gives you any more clout cookies. He got all the clout cookies. Yes. What are your goals as interim CEO, like for Brave Space Alliance? If you have 3 you want to make like before the end of 2023, and we'll get into the meat later.
Yeah, my overall goals for the organization are sustainability and intentional partnerships, and also being able to perpetuate intentional equity for Black, Brown, and Indigenous queer folks here in Chicago. My overall goal is to move towards a more collective liberation because we know that none of us are free until we're all free. So what that looks like is partnering with existing LGBTQ orgs, but also putting intersectionality at the forefront of our goals as an organization. So that means partnering with traditionally Black organizations and other POC organizations as well, to just try to have that collective liberation be fostered as intentional as possible here in the city.
How's that working for you?
Oh, it's working out great right now. It's working out great. We just had a very big collaboration with some other folks here, the Chicago Therapy Collective and Life is Work here in Chicago to celebrate Trans Day of Remembrance, which is November 20th. And it is usually a time of mourning and collective mourning, but we were able to kind of reclaim that R and TDOR and turn it into a weekend of resilience and have some necessary programming for our community here in Chicago. So it's been going great.
Good for you. Good for you. What's the age range, may I ask, of your members?
So we are usually adult focused. So 18 to 35 is usually our focus. And that's intentional because there are a lot, there could always be more, but there's a lot of resources for LGBTQ youth. There's also a good amount of resources for older LGBTQ folks. So we like to come in and be able to support our youth by providing an immediate access and community as soon as you turn 18.
So speaking of LGBTQ youth, the article that I wrote today for our newsletter talked about one of the several bomb threats that the Boston University Children's Hospital has received. Specifically, this one was from a Texas man who's 38, and he pretty much left a mean, scary voicemail for a doctor who performs gender affirming care. So can you talk about, like, from your personal stance, and I don't know if you want to affiliate with BSA, but I hope it's affiliate with BSA, the importance of gender affirming care, and we talk about gender affirming care for youth that are under the age of 18?
Right. And I think I want to start off by adding, Brave Space, we receive threats on a continuous basis, written, verbal, folks approaching us out in the streets, voicemails left on our voicemail box. So this is nothing that we're new to, that this is new for us. But when it comes to gender affirming care for our youth, it is literally a matter of life and death. We know that our youth who are able to receive gender affirming care, they're 50% more likely to have a positive social and mental health outcomes in general. We also know that access to gender affirming care for our youth is one of the most significant determining factors into whether our youth will experience urges of self-harm or to die by suicide at any point in their life, not just while they're young. So it's really unfortunate that there's been an uptick in misinformation about gender affirming care, and it's been rampant. And unfortunately, that's also been a catalyst of most of the violence that the LGBTQ plus community has been facing. But the good thing about it is that science proves that puberty blockers, supportive medical and social transitioning, that these are all safe mechanisms for our youth.
And you also mentioned a little bit like what critics attack, but critics argue specifically that youth that engage in gender-affirming care under the age of 18 is a bit dangerous because youth may not know exactly how important this decision may be on their physical well-being, on their body. So can you provide a little bit of a rebuttal, or like what would you say to folks that do have that type of response to gender-affirming care for youth?
Yeah, I mean, well, two things. One, I have a lot more trust and faith in our youth to know who they are and what they need. I think society does a really good job of stifling creativity and self-identity in young people, whether this is LGBTQIA folks or not. And I think it would behoove us to become a little bit more accustomed to trusting that kids know who they are. Because I know some folks who are 60 and up who are still struggling with identity and things like that. So, you know, I personally just have a lot more faith in children and youth when it comes to that. I look at my own experiences as a trans Black man, and I knew at a very young age that I was trans. And I would have loved to see what type of person I would have been if I had that community and that care that allowed me to explore my gender identity.
And I want to give the opportunity for my other co-hosts to ask questions because I want to absorb all the space. And I want you guys to feel comfortable asking questions. I know a lot of the times I make things a bit like uncomfortable. It may seem as if you can't ask them, but I encourage you guys to ask a question, Myra, Stephen, or Sybil. Or maybe not Stephen because Stephen is busy, but Myra.
you may not get the answer.
I don't know.
Or be able to give the answer by the time Steve gets it out there, Jay. But I'm curious, when you said that you knew from a very young age that you were trans, what was that? What was the age? And can you kind of take us through that about understanding who you were and what you wanted to be or who you wanted to become?
Yeah, I guess, wow, I don't get asked that question often, so thank you. I would say probably at the youngest age of 8 and 9 years old is when I started realizing, and I don't like to use the terms in the wrong body, because that can be, you know, not affirming to folks. Sure. But I knew that I wanted to take steps to become whole and to become seen. I just didn't have the language for that. And that's a fortunate thing about our young trans youth now is they have the language, they have the internet, they have access to the education, and that's just something I didn't have. So, you know, I can be very frank and open with you all. I didn't start medically transitioning into my late 20s. And like I said before, I would have loved to have seen, you know, my mental health and the things that I've gone through as a person. I would have loved to see if that would have been mitigated by being allowed to be who I actually was and who I felt on the inside.
Was your family, were they cooperative? Were they, did they embolden you in this process?
No, I'd probably say they did the opposite. And that is unfortunately the truth of a lot of Black trans folks. Through white supremacy and other mechanisms that are enforced in society, our folks are not as supportive. And we know why. And that's another reason why I like to be a little bit more patient with our people when it comes to learning. But no, there was no emboldening. And, you know, unfortunately, I have a story of a lot of trans folks where I haven't talked to I haven't talked to my biological family in years.
Got it. Yeah, I've heard those stories too. Myra, Steve?
I don't really have a question, and I've often wondered as a parent how would I handle that. But I'm still on the side of I could never deny who you believe you are, but I still think that as a parent and just knowing that you are a child still developing, still growing, I would be hesitant to have you do something so permanent and so major until and I know there's no magical number if that's 18 or 21, but I think until you got on your own, I would be willing to support you. But I just know right now as a 10-year-old, you could tell me, but I would not support having you doing anything to change you physically, only because I still think you still have some more mental growing to do. Not that you're wrong. I just think you have more growing to do.
And that's fair, and that's totally fair. And so I'll say two things to that. One, I think people, we need to start addressing that children can also socially transition. So this may not look like doing anything medically, but it will look like, hey, using the name that they want to use, using the pronouns that they want to use, dressing in the attire that feels affirming to them. So I think it would be nice, especially for our community, to put more of an emphasis and put more of a support on socially transitioning. But also to the medical transition part, Myra, I think, again, there's just a lot of misinformation about what it means for youth to medically transition. In that story that you had in your newsletter, Kwyn, the claims of the guy who were making the threats was castration and all this other stuff. That's just simply not happening. And so, again, I urge you to do some extra education around it. And I will also say this, when it comes to supporting your children, like I said earlier on with Kwyn's questions, it's a matter of life and death. And I'm sure a lot of us would rather want our children here than to die by suicide or to die with self-harm. And this is what it really comes down to. And I will also add that I think the percentage is less than 4% of all trans adults have any sort of feelings of regret or anything like that. That is just something that simply is not true, but is perpetuated by extremists. So,
your stat is exactly the reason I have challenge with it, because there's 4%. Literally, because there's 4% of people who go through this and ever. Now I want to be very clear. I could not support you more when it comes to supporting your child, your nephew, whatever it is, in the way they want to express themselves non-medically. But the challenge is around that 4%, and what percent is, and we had this conversation on here before, like what percent is acceptable enough of the people that might regret. And I love that you put out 4, because I'm like, yeah, that to me, that's too much. And I wonder if that number would be smaller, if that number gets smaller as the age goes up at the choice of medically affirming identity. That's the part.
Would they start transitioning at the age of 18 in comparison to younger? Is that what you mean, Stephen?
No, what I mean, yes. What I heard Jay say is that only kind of 4% who did it very young regret the transition.
Just a correction. I did that. Well, one, I said less than 4, and 2, I wasn't referring to people who did it when they were young. I was referring to all trans people in general. Yes. So nothing to do with age range.
Got it.
Yeah.
I guess I wonder whether that within that stat, what it looks like, the percentage of regret for people who started at 12, 13, 14, 15, and if there's a correlation between, kind of inverse correlation between age at which you start medically transitioning and percentage of people who have who regret it. So
I haven't seen any of that research. I haven't seen anything that proves that. But that point is valid. It really is. And I'll say, hey, there's a bigger percentage of folks who regret a tattoo that they got versus.
It's really interesting because we had that discussion.
I used that last time and got smacked around.
Because Stephen compared the surgery to gig attack. It's just funny that you brought it up right now. This is full circle. Healing is great. Healing is great. There we go.
Nice. It is.
Now you can use it.
Jay, I'm curious, in your story, did you find your people, your family that you have now? Was it a difficult process? Was it an easy process in finding your community, your people?
Yeah, I think there's never a sense of ease for Black people of any kind to find our community.
Right.
And that's something, again, I want to push intersectionality. I'm queer, I'm a trans man, but I'm also a Black trans man. And that is something that we experience something different than our white counterparts. And I always like to take the chance to say that. So yes, it was hard, but outside of what I do with Brave Space Alliance, I'm also a space curator, party promoter, and DJ. So it was so hard to find our people that my partner and I just created our own events. We created our own activations. And one thing that stays stays true, especially in Chicago, the city where house music was created, and house music is Black queer music. We are used to finding liberation and community through partying, through dance, through music on the dance floor. So I'm really lucky to have been able to know how to curate vibes and be a practitioner of freedom and joy in that way. So that made it a little bit easier, but it is difficult, especially in such a big segregated city like Chicago, where Black queer folks are just like, well, where do we go?
Right.
So like I said, it was difficult.
And you provided that space.
Yes, we're still providing it. Yes, we're still providing it. Small World Collective has been throwing events here in Chicago for over 7 years now.
We have a comment from one of our viewers. SD Mark says on Facebook, we have the same issues with wrestling with age when young women are wanting permanent reproductive sterilization procedures. And that's especially true now, Steve, in talking about the abortion issue. And,
by the way, it's important to point out that's Dr. Marks. That's a doctor who put that who said that.
Yeah, it's an obstetrician gynecologist. Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jay, we have run out of time, but I thank you for joining us. I'm sorry.
As I think Myra has something.
No. This question was so deep. Let's just wrap it up.
Again, and I'll answer all the questions for you.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jay, if you'll come back again, because otherwise our producer is just going to kill us because we have gone over time, and you'll just
time to move on, time to go, time to go.
Happy birthday!
Well,
happy early birthday!
Thank you for having me, and thank you for sharing space in such an intentional.
And how can people find you, Jay?
BraveSpaceAlliance.org, Brave Space Alliance on Instagram, Small World Collective on Instagram, DJ Dapper Chicago on Instagram. Please become reoccurring donors, because when you subscribe to Liberation for Brave Space, you are subscribing to the liberation of all people in Chicago. So I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy birthday. And happy birthday in advance. And as Myra said, happy holidays. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you. Thank you, Kwyn, for introducing us to Jay. I think he has a fascinating story. I'd like to hear more about it, and maybe Myra can get her intricate and complicated question in the next time.
I love all of you guys, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. And I know we all have different views, but I really do love you, and I know that your intention is always just to learn and do something better.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate you guys so. I'm trying not to cry. But I appreciate you guys so much.
And I appreciate you. And if you would just cry just a little bit, maybe just tears to here. Okay. I'm happy. I'm good.
Here's the best. Here's the best way to wipe off tears.
For those that can't see this, Stephen is doing a little peekaboo action back at Kwyn, where we started the show. Let's move to our trending topics. And first of all, Myra, do you have dates? Do you have new comedy dates to report?
Not this weekend, next weekend, December 16th, 17th, 18th, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, George Wallace, Anthony Brown, and myself at the Pittsburgh Improv.
Oh, yeah.
You guys did Milwaukee. That looked like a really nice improv. Was it as nice as it looked?
It was very nice. It was only a year old. So
it still looked like it had the fresh club smell to it. Not that, normal comedy.
The entire wall didn't even have names all over it yet. So,
right.
That's how new it was. Yeah.
Okay. So Pittsburgh at the Pittsburgh Improv next weekend. All right. Yes. Stephen Hill, what about your dates? I know you're not dating anymore, but you got anything coming up?
I would tell you. I would tell you about December 19th and 20th in Chicago, but it's sold out, so you can't do nothing about it.
Is that at the City Winery?
City Winery in Chicago, and then if you're in Oakland, New Year's Eve with Anthony Hamilton at Paramount Theater.
Nice.
Kicking in New Year's. Nice. So she will be on the West Coast, and I will be on the East Coast.
And how shall the twain meet?
New Year's Rockin' Eve. We meet 2 days later, I think. 2 days later is when we meet. We meet back in the house.
Okay, in the house that love built. Okay, all right, good. And young Kwyn, do you have new appearances and dates to report?
I do. I'm doing something, but I've done this every year. It's a private conversation with some University of Chicago students that I'll be doing on January 9th. So it's you can't come. but I'll be at the
Oh,
event.
it's private. Oh, you can't come. Okay. Okay, so we won't be looking for people to come.
Okay, do not pull up on me. Do not pull up on me. But I will be in Chicago, so whoever want to get some.
So you are going to go home for Christmas break.
Yes, I'll be there December 21st through January 9th.
And you can catch her at a nearby Papa Del.
Do you see that face?
Say it's true.
I love it.
She looks so hurt.
I told
By the way,
you,
we were doing so well. We were doing so well.
We literally were. I was like, dang, I love her so much. I was like, wow.
That'll teach you.
Tears reverted. Okay.
That's what happens to family. Those tears.
Okay, like, totally.
So, Myra, how does it feel to be a resident of Georgia today?
Baby, let me tell you once again, cheers to Georgia. We did the darn. I cannot tell you how many people were calling me last night asking me, what's happening now? What's happening? I'm like, turn on the TV. I can't look at it. I'm just calling you to ask me what's up. Oh my God, he's up. How can what are you all thinking? Okay, bye. 10 minutes later. Okay, who's up now? Who's up now? Between text messages and stuff. But once again, Stacey Abrams laid the groundwork for that grassroots game. Yep. They didn't think we would do it, but, and this is a very important but to me, don't sleep, Georgia, because I said this before the show. If they would have had a creepy old pumpkin that could have just put a noun and a verb together, we may not be having this conversation. He was such a flawed candidate that many Republicans just didn't vote, or that they were like, I'm just going to turn my nose up and vote for Warnock. That may not happen again. Don't sleep. We still have work to do.
I should have had you just write my story because that's pretty much what I got. So people, just what Myra said in the next day's newsletter. That's pretty much it. Giving Stacey Abrams her credits for laying the groundwork, as well as the fact that this is a time this is not a time to take your foot off the gas. It is. Go ahead, Myra.
And I loved in his acceptance speech that he did mention, in spite of voter suppression, because you all did try us.
Yeah.
But we did
standing in the rain and the finding your polling place and being told that it was someplace else.
And having to sue to get Saturday voting.
Yeah. And to have the voting period abbreviated, because this went till December 6th, whereas in the previous runoff election, it was January 5th, the day before the insurrection, by the way. But it was an extra month that they were given to campaign.
Yep.
Who is the if it hadn't been Herschel Walker, right? Because I'm challenged by the fact that the Republican Party said, like, hey, here's the guy to represent us. Now, I get he's the anti-Warnock. I understand that. Maybe the philosophy or the strategy was, oh no, I don't think that's true, but George, you got to go put a black against a black. So who's like the number 2 guy that they would have gone to, and why didn't they go to him as number 1?
Because Trump picked him. Trump went to Dallas and got him, and they weren't going to challenge their fearless leader.
And what about the former state representative, Vernon Jones? Did you ever hear if he? I know, but it's a black man, and he was a Trump supporter, and he went and body surfed for Trump. He left the Democratic Party.
He wouldn't have won.
But I am more like here's okay.
But he was better spoken.
I get he's Trump's guy. But it feels like any old white man could have won this in Georgia, because what you force voters to do is go like, I don't want to vote for the black guy, but if I have a choice of voting for the smart one or the dumb one, I'm going to vote for the smart one. Like, I would love to see what how many Republicans voted for Warnock and what that breakdown is. I'm fascinated, because it feels like you just put up the 3rd place white guy up against Warnock, and you have a better chance than Herschel Walker. Trump be damned. It just doesn't feel like something.
Steve, there's something about just filling that seat, and it doesn't matter. It didn't matter.
T-Rump is not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Okay.
Yeah.
So his philosophy was, we're going to split the black vote.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. We're going to split the black vote, and we will get them. But it did not work.
It didn't.
Because we ain't stupid.
I cannot wait to see what the polls say black Democrats that voted for Herschel Walker. Like, I'm dying to see that, because
Democrats?
No, because my point with that philosophy, with that strategy, it requires black Democrats to vote for Herschel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for a win. I don't know. I just don't.
Well, it didn't work. It didn't work in 2020 with Kelly Loeffler. A white woman running against him. So maybe there's some sexism there and some racism in other cases. But what struck me was that one interview by a news station, and they were in the home of what appeared to be a very well-to-do black woman. And she said, we just want someone who can represent us as black Republicans in her nice stainless steel kitchen and all of that. And I was like, dear God, we're sunk.
And it was also so close too, wasn't it? Like, isn't that what everybody's talking about? It was so close, right?
It was still to me. It was still way too close. I think it
was 95,000 votes.
Right.
51.4 to 48.6.
Yeah.
So I think, to like your question, as far as like what the analytics, or I guess like the different statistics as far as who voted what, like I think
that breakdown will come out, Steve.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I can't.
During the general election, he didn't get the 50% of the vote, neither one of them. But Reverend Warnock led by some 37,000 votes. And in the runoff election, he won by 95,000 votes. So you see an increase there.
They are making moves now, trying to figure out, well, what can we do differently in the next election? And I have read somewhere the only reason why Georgia even has a runoff is because back in the day when a black man, and it was close, well, we need to do a runoff.
Right, because he's not, and I really wanted them to do some conversations about that third party candidate who got like 2% of the vote. That 2% could have made a big difference either way. I never saw anything. Myra, did they ever talk about that in the local news?
No. They haven't broken that down yet, because he was with the Libertarian.
He was a Libertarian, right?
Right. How that vote went, but yeah. It'll be very interesting.
Splitting the black vote has only worked when Adele is up in the Grammys up against Beyonce. Like, splitting the black vote works really well when Adele is up for Album of the Year, and then someone's like Drake and Beyonce. Then it's like flat. Adele, you got Adele crying on stage. Beyonce, this should be yours.
and then Kanye will come up on stage and take it away from the white woman.
From everybody.
Today is National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, the day which will live in infamy. This is before all of our time, Kwyn. So
I was gonna say, what was it like? But
I don't know, but I will tell you, it was December 7th, 1941, just a couple of years before I was born. A couple of years, maybe even a couple of days before I was born. But I was struck by this when my grandmother and I went to Hawaii when I was a kid, and we went to the USS Arizona, which is the memorial with the attack of the Japanese on American soldiers and seamen. And this was the day that the Japanese military made their surprise raid on the naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, killing 2,400 U.S. naval service members and civilians, and more than 1,100 people were injured in the attack. And so this is 81 years ago, and 2 survivors still live today.
Wow.
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 Two survivors, yeah. But that's when I became interested in World War II history, and our friend Kevin is more interested. He has a real fascination with the European theater and the whole concentration camps of Jews and things like that. I became more interested in the whole Japanese thing and the attack on Pearl Harbor, having gone there and talking to my grandmother and telling me about that day. That she remembers that, Franklin Roosevelt said, this is a day that shall live in infamy, and how the next day Congress said, okay, we're going to war with the Japanese. They had managed to stay out of it for a very long time, but that's when it all started. But what just boggles the mind is that in our history, the horrible things that they have done to Black people, and they put Japanese people in concentration camps.
Oh yeah.
Just, I just, the things that this country has done to minorities, just
and put that in no history books until people start digging it up. You gotta understand this.
Right.
This access to history is a really recent thing.
Yeah.
Right. The interwebs have really accelerated folks' knowledge and misinformation, but also knowledge.
I had a history teacher who debated me on that. He said it was 7th grade history, and it's not in our history books. And I said, I've got a friend of my mother's that told me about her family being taken from their homes.
Yeah.
And put in concentration camps.
Now there's a wide swath of difference between the German concentration camps and the ones that we had. To be honest, there wasn't as far as we know, there wasn't mass killing. It was, the goal was we don't know where their loyalties are, so we want to keep them all together. That's not a good reason, but it was not to wipe them off the face of the earth.
Exactly. This is now time for entertainment, and I don't know if this is an entertaining story for you, but it does involve an entertainment figure. Bill Cosby is facing a new lawsuit from 5 women, most of whom were involved in the Cosby Show, who claimed that he sexually assaulted them. According to the suit, the women claimed that the disgraced actor-comedian masqueraded as their mentor as they tried to break into show business in the 80s and 90s, but instead he turned into a predator. The plaintiffs, Lily Bernard is one name that I recognize from this, Steve. I didn't recognize the others. Jewel Gittins, Jennifer Thompson, and Sindra Ladd, and I don't know if you or Myra are familiar with those names, said that Cosby was able to take advantage of them because they were young and they were vulnerable. Lily Bernard guest starred as Mrs. Minifield in a 92 Cosby episode. And in her lawsuit, she says that Cosby drugged, assaulted her several times, including one time when she woke up during the rape to find him trying to smother her with a pillow.
Yes, she was featured in W. Kamau Bell's
that was it. Okay.
Documentary.
Right.
We need to talk about. I think we need to talk about Cosby. Is what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
She was featured in that.
That was it. Yep. She threatened to go to the police, and he threw her down a flight of stairs, she says, and kicked her out, warning he would destroy her. And she didn't report the alleged crimes out of fear for her life. It's just disturbing.
That's the police blotter. That's not entertainment news. That's police blotter.
Okay. Well, it is a stretch because the other entertainment story I had was Don Lemon sending out his love and support to TJ Holmes and the woman that his co-host that he is having an affair with. And
well, is it still an affair now? I mean,
right. Okay, so
does anybody really care?
Well, you know what? It's crazy, Myra, because now they're parsing out like what TJ Holmes's real name is, and that's a dude who would leave the sister for a white woman. It's like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
I want my news people to give me the news. I want the cable man to fix the cable. I want the plumber to fix the plumbing.
You want the cable man to lay cable,
to lay cable, to lay cable right. That's what I want my cable man to do.
There was some plumbing getting. Listen, here's the thing.
And some
I was
plumbers to plumb.
The thing about this is that when that story broke, and I believe it broke last Wednesday, the day that we were on, and I remember saying, like, as we were going off, like, I can't believe we got away with it. Maybe it was Tuesday. Maybe it was a Tuesday. The fact that they showed up for work and their key card still worked the next day, that they swiped that thing, whoop, and the gate opened to let them in. That's some crazy stuff.
That is whole new world stuff, right?
They only lasted 1 or 2 days before the brass.
When they came back on Monday, the president of ABC News, Kim Godwin, said they're going to be off for a while till we get all this straightened out and clear up some things. So and I think that was after it was revealed that he had also had an affair with a producer.
Yeah.
Hey, what? I missed that part. What happened?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he had a long-term affair with a producer from ABC News.
I mean,
so I know that the anchor
Amy Robach.
They said that is it is consensual and it's not against any rules
because they were
ABC.
equals.
And I appreciate and applaud them. Actually, I made a joke, but I applaud them for, like, let them come to work while you sort it out, right? Because they didn't break any laws.
They never had better numbers than that. Next day.
Of course, shoot. I think I didn't tune in, but I meant to. I did.
I think I would make our producer feel better if I went to the Jewel for the day.
Okay.
Our daily inspiration, and I think that would make Kwyn feel better too, because this isn't her flavor either.
I was listening. I like the guy.
She was into it.
She don't
into the teeth.
I thought you were Tory Lanez, the whole Megan Thee Stallion trial.
Well, I had that down too, and that.
Where are we on that? Where's that? Right now.
He got a third charge against him, and an ankle bracelet, right, Kwyn? In regards to the trial, he has another felony alleged against him, and also Marvin Gaye's wife Jan died. She was 66 years old.
That's unfortunate.
So she was the inspiration for a lot of his music, and also and a lot of heartache apparently in that marriage, in which he was 34, she was 17 when they started. Just saying.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, you didn't know that?
Yeah,
I probably knew it. I forgot. God,
yeah.
Dog it.
Yeah.
God.
He was 34.
Dog it.
17.
Don't tell me there's somebody else. Don't tell me there's somebody else I can't listen to. How you gonna try to take R. Kelly and Marvin Gaye?
You just know what's going on.
Here, my dear.
Okay.
Today's daily inspiration: a deep breath can help you control your emotions. Stephen Hill. So, inhale peace. Exhale anger. He can't.
I'm sorry. My wife is telling me why I either should or should not listen to Marvin Gaye.
I can't wait to hear that conversation.
I just found out. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. Okay. I just found that he was 34 dating a 17-year-old, married her, so that counts. No, I can't even. I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Well, he married Aaliyah too.
Okay. All right. Oh, what? Oh, look at the time.
Yeah, look at the time. Gotta go. Thanks, everybody. Kwyn, thank you so much. Myra and Stephen Hill, thank you all. We'll see you again soon. Aloha.
Bye, everybody. Stay safe.